legislation buried for the cost of billion-dollar backroom deals that profit from our loss. What good is tomorrow? We're born to die and waste. Is trust just an illusion? Is a promise a mistake? And as sure as the sun shines, as sure as the grass grows and the rivers flow, I'll be there beside you, pulsing through your veins. You'll feel my heart, you know. Time has come to recognize deceptions of the past, seek truth and stand together at last. Sure as the sun, sure as the trees, and the rivers flowing free. I'll be there, I'll be there, you can count on me. I'll be with you when we stand together.
Welcome to UCY.TV, everybody. Talk about right at the wire. Oh my! I thought we had a good idea, Mark and I, and we was going to play the show through Blog Talk. So thank you, Suzanne Posel. She is listening in and playing it through her phone into Blog Talk with Mark. So, it's playing into the speaker. Who's got that on? Is that? Oh, what a fiasco. Sorry, everybody. I mean, we got Jose and Liam Chef on, and, man, I'm sorry. We was really hustling trying to figure this out at the last minute. And anyways, we're going to talk about science versus faith, and what's the difference? And there's going to be a lot of people with different opinions on this. So, without discussion, then, I don't think a person can grow or learn anything. So, if it goes against what your beliefs are, then I think it's a really good idea to go ahead and take a look and listen to it and, see what it is. So welcome, Jose and Liam. How you guys doing this evening?
Hey, good evening. How are you, Vincent?
Awesome. Okay, and Mark is going to be joining us too. So Mark, is what I need you to do is call in by phone, and I'll add you into the call here on UCY, I think. Yes. How you doing, Jose?
I barely made it in, but I'm in.
Oh, me too. I didn't even post yet. So, hey, listen, let me let you open with the introduction and let you and Liam kind of take off here together, and let me go gather my thoughts and finish what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'll just turn it over to you guys, and I'll be back with you in just a few.
Who's speaking? Liam? Did I pronounce that right?
Liam? Me.
Yeah, hi, I'm here. I'm just waiting for the show to start, so
yeah, we're on live. Okay. You guys,
we're
do a little talking and let me get my stuff ironed out here, and I'll be back with you, okay?
Yeah, we're on. Liam, I just wanted to detract from Vincent because you and I and everybody else both knows he's going to go smoke a cigarette. But I wanted to. This is a surprise to me. I thought I was going to be alone, but it's good to have someone to talk to. And I don't want to. Excuse me for clearing my voice, but I don't want to detract from the topic. Although I barely made it in because I was in jail all day long. We'll talk about that some other time. And
let's really talk about that now. No. You can't say that and change the subject. So go ahead.
Well, is it that I had a traffic citation case that I was fighting from 2 years ago, and I lost the case and appealed it to a higher court, and And all of a sudden today I was going to have some junk food with a friend, and cop tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, let's go to jail." Apparently something happened, and they put a warrant out for my arrest, which I think is ridiculous. You know, if something happened with my appeal, I think I should have been, informed about it, right? I could have pursued other matters.
I don't know. The court system is notoriously confounding. There are often lapses of communication within it. And so what did you get, a speeding ticket?
Actually, I was given 2 citations, one for expired license plate sticker and the other one for an expired, they call it a safety sticker, but it's no longer a safety sticker. It's a...
well, you seem to be okay. So you seem to have made it out.
Yeah, I survived it. But plus I had a captive audience in jail. But before we get,
yes.
We're going
so who did you regale with stories?
Well, far be it from me
what did you tell them about?
Remember their names.
I see. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
There was a bunch of guys in there, and it was a big mess. Yes, you're right. The court system, the jail system, and I even talked to the little guy who was, releasing me. He was the supervisor at the time, although he had no rank insignia on his shirt or collar. And I told him, "Hey, look, I know you're just doing your job, but look at me. I'm an old man. I got bad knees, bad shoulders, and bad hair." I said, "I appealed this case, and I haven't been informed about the appeal, and now there's an arrest warrant for me. Do you think that's fair?" And he kind of just shrugged his shoulders, and I said, "Yeah, but look, I know that you have a privilege because when you get pulled over and are going to receive a ticket, because you are a cop, you're not going to get one. But how would you like it if you were to fight a ticket and appeal it, and all of a sudden there's an arrest warrant out for you?" I said, "Does that seem right to you?"
Understood. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
What's the upshot? Where are you with it now?
Well, we'll find out. I'm just out. I'm telling you, I just walked in the door, gulped down a leftover piece of meat, and sat at I restarted my computer, and before I knew it, Vince was already calling me on it, and I was like, "Okay." So that's enough. People are going to want to know, and we'll discuss it later on at a later date. That's good fodder for for a call-in, because Vince's guests are always talking about the system and so on and so forth. We're going to talk about the system too.
Well, we're going to talk hopefully about the sciences. Now I have till 8:30, maybe 8:40. So and then I got to call the West Coast. So I want to jump in. So can Vincent get back from his cigarette break?
No, I never left for a cigarette. I was posting and getting everybody connected here. So anyways, I'm here with you guys. I appreciate y'all coming on. Liam, you've written a book and you've discussed this, and introduce yourself for the listeners that may not know who you are. And
Sure, no problem. So I'm a writer. I became a journalist 12 or 13 years ago, something like that. And I'd done a lot of different things. I had a variety of different experiences in life. I had studied macrobiotics, Chinese medicine, nutrition, cooking, music, language. I had sort of been a creature of learning a lot of that kind of stuff. And, normal stuff, normal dating, disasters, non-disasters, exciting times, non-exciting times, all that kind of stuff that we go through in life. I felt very much pulled back into writing, which is something I did when I was younger. I've had instant success with it. I felt like, oh, good, okay, I'll do it. I thought that journalism was a place to tell the truth. So I started writing and getting published. And I think people were impressed with my ability to find things out. So I began digging. It was a lot of fun to dig and find things out that were hidden. And I found myself in the pharmaceutical, without meaning to be, digging into the pharmaceutical game around this topic called AIDS, which I never really had thought about too much or expressed much interest in. I did have an uncle who's an AIDS researcher, and my family is a group of doctors, scientists, researchers, etc. So I'd heard a few things, certainly like everybody else, about it. I'd also heard some things on the inside that you might not usually hear, like we don't know what we're doing, and what was the other bit? We just need more funding. We don't know how it works. We know that it causes AIDS, but we don't know how it works. That was something that I heard from time to time. That you hear that kind of stuff on the inside. It's in the journals. And I started to hear this story about how AIDS was very complex, and it was really a lot of different kinds of illnesses that were being bundled together with a test, and the test wasn't accurate. So I looked into that and found out that was about the right description. The tests aren't accurate. They're not specific. So I got into digging into this thing called virology, and then I did that for a while and found out all kinds of things about that. And then I decided that the world was big, and I was tired of that issue, and I would look at some other things. So I looked at some other things. I looked into astronomy. And astronomy, we're told that first there was nothing, and then it exploded. That we're told that this is the scientific explanation for the universe. It's called the Big Bang. First there was nothing, which exploded. Sounds an awful lot like biblical Genesis. First there was nothing, and then God made everything. And if you look up, funny story that we're not told in school, if you look up who devised the notion of Big Bang, it happened to be a guy called Georges Lemaitre, who happens to be a Roman Catholic priest. And then you begin to see the lines crossing and uncrossing and go, oh, that's not really science, is it? You can't do math with first there's nothing and then it exploded. So it's a myth. You have to have faith to believe it because it doesn't work. So the HIV thing didn't really work. The tests don't work. AIDS was any illness that some people got, and they sort of only tested certain groups of people. And then you look at vaccination, and I dug into vaccination. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I've always been sort of agnostic about that. That's how I put it. I thought that maybe it did some good, and maybe it wasn't so necessary when you get older, or maybe we overdo it. I looked into it, and I found out amazing things. I found out that the so-called poliovirus, according to the mainstream, doesn't cause paralysis except 0.1 to 0.5% of the time. I thought, well, that's interesting. They blame a stomach bug for this thing, and then they say it causes the disease, but not 99.9% of the time. That seems strange. Then you dig into the literature, and all these great people who have come before in the books have pointed to a couple of culprits in the 19-teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, namely DDT and some other things like arsenic and lead that were regularly put on fruits and vegetables that people would eat. You think, well, DDT is a potent organochlorine. It's a neurotoxin. I mean, if people eat that, they might become paralyzed. Interesting. So the thing they blame for polio, they only say causes polio, but not 99.9% of the time. And then DDT, they say, well, yeah, of course it can cause all the same symptoms, but of course it didn't cause polio, even though we sprayed it on children. And the list goes on. So you can dismantle the 20th century. You can just take it apart piece by piece. And what the common binding factor, in my opinion, and these are all my opinions. Don't worry, they're my opinions. I'm not giving you medical advice. Take whatever drugs you want to take from the pharmaceutical company. It's none of my business. But what binds the 20th century together is a black sticky product called oil that changed the way that we relate to nature and changed the way we relate to the world and gave us something, of such inordinate power. We use 20 million barrels a day. Each barrel is worth about 23,000 hours of human labor. That's about 7 to 10 years of a day job per barrel. We use 20 million of those in one country, this country, per day, 90 million in the world. We have so much more energy to use and spend than any previous generation of people on Earth that it's not surprising that we do crazy things with it, like make nuclear bombs and drop them on people and wage world wars and create chemicals out of the black sticky substance, and that all of the things I named, right, all petrochemical derivatives and derived through the process of that chemistry. So if the conversation is the difference between faith and science, I can tell you now that science is a kind of religion that worships the petrochemical, that worships the gas pump and the oil supply. And on that note, and I am available for children's parties. I would just like you to know that. So, go ahead.
Well, I resent that you stole my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not only because you said what you said, but you also gave a disclaimer, which I think I am pretty well known for, because I have a disclaimer that says the opinions expressed by me are opinions based on my research, my observation, my client interactions, and are hardly to be blamed on the producers, the sponsors, or any others affiliated with this program. And I thought, I'm going to be the only one to say that, and everybody else is going to speak their opinions as if it's fact. Darn you for being good. Okay.
Hey, let me jump in real quick. You know what? This was all kind of cobbled together at the last minute. We made it into a big old party here for this. And so, Jose, if to be fair, I think if we can put off our relationship talk at the end, I think we'll carry into 2 hours here. And if you would say that way, I can give you full time too. And we're gonna have.
Well, remember, I got to. I know I got split at about quarter till, so
right.
Relationship away.
No, that's in the second hour. But if I'm asking Jose if we can just continue on this topic, and after we talk some, and then we're going to add some callers, and just what's your opinion, Jose?
Well, let's play it by ear. To be honest with you, I usually do my relationship topics. I wing them because I'm so familiar with them. So I mostly prepared for this topic. If we get into it and Liam has to leave, we can either continue talking on this topic, or we can go into a short brief of the relationship topic, which some people do want to hear. But you know how I am. If this conversation gets good, we're going to stick to it. Right?
Awesome.
Dig in. I threw. You said I stole your thunder, but I skimmed the surface and I put a lot of hooks out there. So have at it.
Well, I appreciate that. We have Mark also. What is Mark gonna provide sort of a different point of view or perspective?
We're just all talking and going to have a discussion, and I'd like to hear what everybody has to say, and just compare thoughts.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Jose.
Okay, let me explain what's happened here and what we're doing, I guess, first of all. So Mark has a blog talk, and we didn't figure this all the way through. So we are now broadcasting. Thank you, Suzanne Posel from Occupy Corporatism. She has UCY playing right now on her computer and has her phone there and is called into Blog Talk. So this is being broadcast a double live right now. Well, actually, Blog Talk has a delay, just a little bit. And anyways, I'm very sorry for the confusion. I confused myself. So anyways, that's what we're doing. And we have hopefully some more callers that's going to join in and weigh in. So with that, I turn it back over to you fellas.
Okay. Well, given the logistics are less important to me, then that's your deal. You're the one pushing the buttons and flipping the switches and all that kind of stuff. I will say, like I said, my disclaimer that the biggest problem that we have are that people get on television, radio shows, news shows, or whatever, and they speak, even in commercials, right? And they speak their information as though it were fact. And it's all been kind of bastardized. Pardon the language. Bastard is not a bad word. It's just a bad thing to be, right? Anyway, China, being almost the only recorded culture in the history of the world in which science is relatively unaffected by religion with respect to the indigenous cultures throughout the world. The cultures that were devastated by the Judeo-Christian Muslim religion. And so if callers are going to call in, I want to avoid people saying, well, the Chinese do this and the Chinese do that. So I want to kind of add that buffer there, right? And of course, before the Catholic Church, which is considered the best known, quote unquote, enemy of science, there was the Jewish belief, but even the Jewish faith had already been devastated by. I kind of agree with Liam in this, but I call my item capitalism, okay, or greed, right? And it has manifested itself in oil. It's a good point, something I hadn't considered. Okay, that having been said, I emphasize that when I refer to faith, religion, or the church, I really mean all religion, okay, regardless of what the religion might be. And we certainly, want to point out that there are other religions besides the ones I mentioned, the Jewish, the Judeo-Christian / Muslim faith. There are other gods out there. There are other Christs out there that are unfamiliar to these three religions, because these three religions happen to believe that there's only one true God, and so everybody else is just nonsense. But we're not discussing that too much today. The battle between science and faith has always been a battle for power, and it was a battle for power because he who controls the power possesses the ability to be more secure in his life or her life than the rest of the people. And as a matter of fact, they are more secure at the expense of the rest of the people. And, some people say, well, these people are rich. What makes you think that they, they want any more power or money? Well, they do. They do, because it adds to their comfort. Okay. The problem is that people seem to want to be told what to believe. That is the reason most of the people listen to us, for example. They're listening to us right now, or if they're listening at all. And that's the reason people watch television. That's the reason people listen to the radio. That's the reason people read the newspaper, because they want to be told what to believe. And notice that, when you're in school, when we were in school, we were encouraged to keep up with current events. And really all they were doing were figuring a way to let us perpetuate the control of the elites over us. Now, we're going to back up here a little bit. By the year 1500, the Roman Catholic Church was all powerful in Western Europe. And any legal alternative to the Catholic Church was completely absent. You were either with the church or you were against the church. Not to paraquote, a famous president here of the last decade here. The church jealously guarded its position of power, and anybody deemed to have gone against the church was labeled a heretic, burnt at the stake. Right? The church ruled over all schools. The only way people could get educated was if they were, in a church or a monastery or something like this. And so they controlled knowledge. And so its power had already been built up over centuries, and it relied on ignorance, on the ignorance of the masses. Only church members knew how to read. Right? Only people who were going to abide by the church were taught how to read. You couldn't become a king and not know how to read. You couldn't be a queen, and maybe a queen because they didn't really have that much power, right? But they relied on ignorance and superstition on the part of the populace. It had been indoctrinated into people that they could only get to heaven via the church. The Catholic Church had, yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you. I think Liam has to take off here in just a little bit.
No, quarter till.
Let me get you to weigh in. Let's get you to weigh in here. Jose, I'm sorry to be rude to you and interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No. Keep, you guys, I have 20 minutes. Keep going. It's fine.
20 minutes is nothing, Liam. You better get your foot in.
I know. Jose,
I was listening to what you were saying. Please. Continue. You were making points about the church. You weren't done.
Let me weigh in a little bit. As far as church, I really ain't big on organized religion. I think everybody's relationship or non-relationship with their creator, Pope, that's their own business. But it is important to discuss this. As far as let's go towards topic about the difference between faith and scientific views, because there's been some good points made in the event page that, it is perspective. And a person, they can't possibly hope to understand everything. I think that was you that said that, Liam. There's no way you can understand everything, right?
Right. Well, this is a limitation in all philosophies, that there's no such thing as having all knowledge, and it's impossible to know anything completely. There's a koan, or a concept in Asian philosophy that's summarized in actually macrobiotics, and it goes like this: everything that has a front has a back. In other words, for everything that is visible, everything that you can see, you can be sure that there's something that you don't see. So this is something that's not understood by lab technicians, though. They actually believe that they can see both sides and they can see everything. But it's impossible. That's not the way the universe built this place. Science asks us to believe that they're giving us truth or facts, but they get to change their minds all the time. In other words, facts change. They get to change the facts whenever they realize that the facts that they had last week weren't the facts, and now they're the facts. But now, tomorrow, they may not be the facts, but right now, today, they're the facts. And that's why I was listening to Jose. The reality is that the medieval church is still very much in existence. And what Jose is talking about our need to have a group, I always say we have a need to have a group of kings and a group of priests. And the kings tell us who to fight, who to be afraid of, where our grain is being held, and how much money we have to pay to be protected, maybe from the king's men, we're not sure. And we elect them silently. We allow them to exist as an aristocracy. We pretend now that we get to vote. That's a joke. Everybody knows that. And then we allow a group of priests. And the priests are there to give us answers to what are called existential questions, or questions of existence. And these questions of existence go to: where do we come from? Where are we going? What happens when we die? Where were we before we were born? Do we have a soul? Why do we get sick? How do we get better? And what are we? It's a big question, big, huge questions that used to be handled by shaman and myth and storytelling. And some drug taking, by the way, or plant, let's call it what it is, plant taking. So you'd have mystical experiences during life, and that was all part of tribal life. All tribes have these mystical experiences where you get beyond logic and you get beyond sensibility, and you let go, and you see colors that you can't see otherwise, and you hear sounds, and you see visions, and you connect with the ancestors, and you get past and future sort of intermingle and become one, et cetera, et cetera. We don't think that that's relevant anymore. Science doesn't like that until the day that it does, until they start researching cannabis and they realize it cures cancer, and then they like it, but not for the reasons that other people liked it, which apparently were the wrong reasons. Science lives in a place of being atomists. They want to dissect the world into the tiniest, smallest pieces, cut it up, and make it bleed. They want to take an animal, rip it apart, show you its guts, and then take a tiniest part out of that, and then look at that under a machine they built with oil called a microscope, and then they tell you that that's the purpose of the animal, or something like that. In the gene, Richard Dawkins will tell you, is the purpose of the animal, and the purpose is to replicate the gene. In other words, they miss the point so entirely that if they weren't really serious, it would be kind of funny. If they weren't a little bit, if they weren't in control of this 20th century, without meaning to be, they ended up being in control because we elected them as our new priest, Kraft. They are in control. We let them. And, we like it. We pay for it. Hey, give us another iPad. Give us another computer. Give us another 3D movie. Grow more food in Monsanto land. All of this stuff is technical. All of it comes from engineering. All of it comes from petroleum engineering. It's not fake, but it's not sustainable. It's not regenerative. So the question is, do you have to have faith to believe in it? It's going to go away. It doesn't last. It's short-sighted. Whether you have to have faith or not, it is short-sighted. And that's, I think, that's the bubble that we live in. And this is the end of this little bit. But right now, science fights a battle with some people with religion. But science is the religion that most people believe in, despite its shortcomings, despite the atom bombs, despite Monsanto land, despite glyphosate, 2,4-D, DDT, despite all of it. That's where most people worship today.
Unfortunately.
And I will pause.
Okay. Now you're going for the jugular, and I was kind of gonna fluff up the topic and tease the listeners and then hit them. And then hit them.
I only have 10 minutes, so you fluff away. They like to be fluffed.
I'd like to add though that there's a lot of so-called facts in science that they don't add up, and it requires a lot of faith to believe in the evolutionary model. I think.
Well, it does, and it's a big argument that I had when I was going to college. By the way, when I say I was going to college, it's literally about 11 or 12 years ago. Okay, so it's not like back when I was 21 years old. That I would argue with my science professors, biology professors, and so on and so forth, and say, there's so much faith involved in science. We have to have faith that what goes up must come down. I mean, there's no law, there's no science that can prove gravity, right? It's only a theory, and yet we know it exists. So we know that when we jump off of the top of a car, we have faith that we're going to head down instead of up.
Well, but it's demonstrable. I mean, of all the examples you can pick, I think, see, that becomes part of natural philosophy, and science used to be called natural philosophy, as I think you know. And they would just observe. They could only do so much damage because they didn't have very powerful machines, so they just observed. And Isaac Newton observed what everybody had observed, which is what goes up does come down. And he was able to convince people, even though they ridiculed him. They ridiculed him, by the way. He said, well, there's an invisible rope. There's an invisible force that holds the moon to the earth and the earth to the sun, and we'll call it gravity. And his peers said, well, you're absolutely foolish. You're absolutely foolish. There's no invisible force. That's not scientific. That's ridiculous. And he invented, along with Leibniz, he invented the calculus, and he described the pathway of objects in space. And he said, see, this is where the moon will be. And they said, well, of course there's an invisible force called gravity. Of course there is. So, I mean, it's demonstrable. You can do it. If you mean it's not written down on a piece of paper that there's a law called gravity, I understand what you mean. But we heard about evolution. Well, things certainly seem to change over time. You can get them to change in very short periods of time by adjusting the environment. But the idea, the Darwin's idea was, and I talk about this in chapter 8 of my book. My book's called Official Stories, because official stories exist to protect officials. But the concept that Darwin had, in my worldview in any case, was more anti-Catholic, anti-uniformitarianism. The Catholic Church said things had always been this way. Yahweh said, God said, let there be whatever, and there was. And the researchers were looking at the time and saying, well, we just found dinosaur bones from we don't know when, so things haven't always been this way. And the argument started to really shift. And I think Darwin was saying, well, things haven't always been this way, but we can't have a mind in the universe. So we'll say it happened by accident. And we'll say that all the changes were slight and successive. And, they had to be sequential, slight, and successive. And that's how it happened. That takes faith to believe that, because things seem to change very rapidly under many circumstances, and now there's a whole field that totally subverts Darwinism called epigenetics. And Darwinism as a research tool is pretty much dead. People hold on to it in name only, I think. As far as I can tell, they praise Darwin and then they just bash him. I mean, there are books that start up by saying, we owe this to Charles Darwin, and they spend the entire book saying why he was wrong. Really. Like books that still claim the pedigree of officialdom. They start out with we have a lot we don't hate Charles Darwin, and then it's like 200 pages of what an a-hole, what an. So anyway.
Yeah, well, when you're at the top of the hill, people try to topple you, right? Which is basically what happened with Darwin. He was the guy with the best propaganda machine, or at least at the time, because he made the biggest splash, and then all of a sudden it's like, he's not. And as a matter of fact, there was people before Darwin who had said the same thing, and
exactly.
They weren't big enough, so nobody really made a fuss about them.
His grandfather said more. His grandfather said very, very similar things. Erasmus Darwin and Jean Claude de Lamarck said similar things with an emphasis on purposeful change, and he was rejected because the current scientific establishment. I think this gets to the question. The question is, what's the difference between faith and science today? The question of scientists believe that everything in the universe is an accident. That's the central belief of the 20th century. The central tenet of Darwinism is that there's no purpose. The central belief of Big Bang theory is that it was a big dumb accident. They call it a singularity. Christianity says that everything was created by a knowing God. Taoism says that the universe is itself conscious. Hinduism says the same thing. So the world religions add consciousness to it wherever they place it, in a form of a male god or the form of an unknowable transcendent mind. The difference between religion and science seems to be this question of, is there a consciousness in the universe? And I think that if you're alive long enough and you keep your eyes open, you go, yeah, the universe is alive, it's creative. Clearly. We're here. We're not this is too complicated to be an accident. And I don't think that, the word accident is misused. The word random and chance are misused to describe the system that we live in, which is highly structured, incredibly organized, full of repeating patterns. So, that's where we live. We live in a pattern spiraling creative universe. And science says no. It's an accident. That's cosmology. First there was nothing, then it exploded. Darwinism says life came about for no reason at all. But it keeps going, and then through competition. Now here's where they get right through competition, blood red in tooth and claw. That's where they say that we make our changes. They happen to be wrong. I mean, they kind of know they're wrong now because if you feed in a certain kind of mouse a little bit of extra B vitamins, it makes children that are very skinny and healthy and brown, and if you feed them deficiently, it makes giant obese blonde children. And so the idea that things aren't influenced by the outside is kind of going away. And the idea that everything comes about through bloody competition is kind of going away in the social sciences and maybe in the physical sciences. But if I had to put my finger on it, I'd say the difference between religion and science is the question of consciousness.
Certainly.
That's a lot.
We have a caller, and let's see. So there's Liam, Jose, myself, Mark, and a caller with an unknown number. Hello, caller.
Hello, I'm Kevin, and I joined on through Obi Wolf, but formerly the Memory Maker. I was on the other night with this network. I wanted to make a statement, and then my girlfriend wanted to make a statement. Is that possible?
Certainly. You guys come right on.
So, as far as I'm concerned, I used to do radio shows on the law of attraction. But when you get into what you guys are talking about now, as far as my opinion on the Bible, and this is where we have long debates inside of this house, my main point on the Bible is it's blind faith. Now, I don't say that to make anybody mad, because when I had the conversation with my dad many, many years ago, I said, Dad, okay, well, it all boils down to you must believe something that you can't see, and that's what we call faith. And I just call it blind faith. And he said, no, you call it what you want. That's most definitely true. So that's the point that I wanted to make. And then I believe Tia wanted to make a point or two herself or ask a question.
Well, hello, I'm Tia. Yeah, like you said, we've went round and round on that because I happen to believe in creation and have done much research on the subject just because I have a lot of family members that are evolutionists. My dad believed we came from monkeys, and if you believe we came from monkeys, you also believe that we came from primordial soup in Iraq from the get-go. And I personally don't call that science. I call that another blind faith. Huge leaps. Go round and round on the geological column, the circular reasoning behind that. trying to date anything. I mean, which I'm sure, I don't know if you guys touched on it. I was in the middle of another conversation. Did you guys touch on the geological column inside of the evolutionary belief?
No, but that's a very good point, caller. There's no way that all those strata could have been laid down without them being laid simultaneously. And for me, that speaks boldly of a world flood. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Well, and the whole geological column in their science book was guesswork, done back in the early 1800s by a bunch of old fogies. I'm sure they were great in their time, but I can't remember any of their names at the moment. It's been a couple of years since I dove into that, and I'm terrible with names anyway. But they sat down and they literally looked at the rocks and said, okay, this one is so many years old and this layer is so many years old, and they wrote up what they thought it should be. Now, even in science magazines today will admit that they have never found the geological column and the fossils in the order that they thought that they were supposed to be in. I mean, granted, this is way before carbon dating or any other type of, as they call it, scientific way of being able to date anything. I mean, not even to go on the carbon dating subject, being that it is completely inaccurate past what it only has a half-life of about 2,000 years, which they've actually found Tyrannosaurus rex bones that had blood in them that doesn't, you don't find blood in a fossilized bone. Otherwise, they'd be trying to remake.
I can't hear the caller.
Caller, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you. We've got real bad quality. We're not hearing you well.
Oh.
There you go.
Here, I'm sorry.
I've got you.
Is that better?
Yes. That's
okay, better. I was holding the mic wrong.
Okay. So let me interject with you. Yeah, the circular reason applies in science so many times. It's they're old fossils because they're contained in old rock, and we know they're old rock because they have old fossils. So continue, caller.
Yes, that's exactly it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You ask how old is the dinosaur, they say, well, or how do you tell how old the dinosaur is? They say, well, by the rock we found it in. And then turn around and say, well, how do you know how old the rock is? Well, because the fossils we found there. I mean, come on. It doesn't make any sense. And like I was saying with the carbon dating, it's inaccurate. I mean, they've dated one half of a mammoth to be so many millions of years old, and the other half is only like 50,000 years old. I mean, what, did his butt live longer?
Yes, lots of inconsistencies on that. And, carbon dating is only good for supposedly so many thousands of years. And I find there's a lot of anomalies, like, they were able to get DNA from a dinosaur out of a bone, and that stuff it should have been completely fossilized. So yeah, there is a lot of problems with the evolutionary model as far as science is concerned. Would anybody like to weigh in, or would you like to finish? You have some more, caller?
Well, if anybody has anything to say on that,
well,
I definitely
have to run. I have to run, but I would like if you could send Vincent or myself on the Facebook, if there's a paper or a citation about the difference in carbon dating of a single body, I'd be very interested to see that. That would be information to me, and I'd be curious about that. So maybe if you can reference that for me, I'd be appreciative.
My brother Victor's listening. You may have. Well, no, you're off at work. He may not have that at his fingertips, but I'm pretty sure that he has that information.
Well, Vincent, you can message it to me, and I just want to thank you guys. And I got a business call to the West Coast.
Liam, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yes,
sure.
Thank you.
I'll send you
Jose,
a
nice
bunch
to
of
meet
information over.
Thank you so much. And Jose, good luck with.
Thank you.
Jose, just pay the ticket, man. Pay the ticket.
I posted all your links into the event page and also into the chat room here at UCY, and really
thank you
appreciate
so much. Very generous.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, here we are.
I just want to Liam is obviously a better scientist than he is a attorney. But we'll discuss that at a later show. We're jumping right in on banging left and right, where my original plan was to go through the history of how science got to where it is today, how science got to be the awesome the awesome formula that it is today. And those, caller, I missed that female caller's name, but I know she's grimacing right now saying, ooh, if I could just say something again to him. I was kind of, given the history of the power of the church, and I had mentioned how the Catholic Church had kind of depended on ignorance of the populace and the superstition of the populace, right? And of course, science comes in and challenges that, but because the Catholic Church, and not only the Catholic Church. Remember, I'm saying when I refer to one, I'm referring to them all. They controlled schools. They controlled the ability to read, because this is how they made their living. Does that sink into people? This is how they made their living. Okay. As a matter of fact, there were ways that the Catholic Church had of making a living through relics, indulgence, and pilgrimages. With relics, they were officially sanctioned by the Vatican, where they actually sold pieces of straw, hay, white feathers, or stuff like that to the populace, and the money raised went straight to the church, and of course to the Vatican, right? The relics were considered holy because some holy person had touched it or used it or whatever. And this went it went kind of the people of the church, the people attending the church, the individual churches would purchase these, and they thought that this was a way to keep the priest happy. And if the priest was happy, it was a way for you to get into heaven, right? And with indulgences, there were certificates. The Pope actually signed several certificates, and that were printed out, and the priest or the bishops or whoever would go around selling these to the parishioners, and basically it was a get out of hell free card. Of course, it wasn't free because you had to pay, and it was later expanded that an indulgence for a dead relative might be purchased, because of. If he was in purgatory, he was not going to go into heaven. And so you could buy one of these pre-signed certificates from the Pope to get your dead relative into heaven. And people believe this. I know today it sounds outlandish, but this is actually how the Catholic Church got its power. And then we had pilgrimages where people had to go to a certain church. Of course, it had to be a Catholic church, and you go to that Catholic church, and then your soul would be saved. And in order to prove that you had actually gone to the Catholic Church, you had to buy something, a badge or some holy water or more certificates to prove that you had been there, and therefore your soul was saved. By the way, it was specifically the issue of indulgences that motivated Martin Luther into speaking out against the Catholic Church, which was, again, a very dangerous thing to do. Martin Luther took a big chance. Of course, he represented another religion, the Protestants or the Protestant Church, and so on and so forth. This is how the Catholic Church got its power. By the year 1500, right? For example, the earth once... And Liam had touched on this. The Earth was once considered to be the center of the universe, right? This is science we're talking about. And the church adopted that the Earth was the center of the universe. And then guys like, Copernicus and so on and so forth suggested that the sun was the center of the universe, and the Earth actually rotated around the sun. And the Catholic Church said that it was blasphemous. 100 years later, Galileo, who, by the way, is considered the father of modern science, supported the idea that the sun was the center of the universe, and he was imprisoned for life for writing a book biased, favoring the scientific concept that disagreed with the church. Now, later on, he was released from prison, but he was always, he died in house arrest. Everywhere he went, he was being followed. He couldn't say anything to anybody without the church finding out about it. He was always in trouble and so on and so forth. But can you imagine anyone who would see this happening? Would they even want to pursue a career in science when the church was punishing them? Literally, burning people at the stake and so on and so forth. Okay. And he was imprisoned over whether the sun or the earth was the center of the universe. Really, he was imprisoned over the matter of who controlled the truth or who controlled the knowledge, right? In the meantime, while this was going on, the Maya and the Mexica had already figured out what the center of the universe was centuries before, but now they're battling greedy Europeans just to stay alive because Europeans saw the Maya and the Mexica and all other indigenous tribes around the world as well as on this land that we now call America as blasphemous savages that were ignorant and hardly worthy of being alive, except to serve as slaves, of course. But of course, when you consider someone serving as slaves, that's the profit. The motivation there is profit, because free labor it equals bigger profits, right? And because the Europeans, that is to say Christians, held the real knowledge, or so they thought, and the true religions, so what the Mayans and the Mexica and the Incas and all these other indigenous tribes believed in didn't matter, and these are just the tribes that I'm aware of. I know there's, hundreds of tribes in Africa and in Australia and in the Polynesian islands and so on and so forth. This would be bad enough if what the Europeans and the Christians did had stopped there, but the persecution continued with witch hunts, witch burnings for centuries or longer, indeed until today, right? When were those people burned in Africa? I saw a video on it on YouTube recently, because they refused to believe in God, or maybe because they refused to be a specific religion. There was a video where other tribal members were actually pushing these people into a bonfire, kicking them, and the people would writhe in pain and then roll out of the fire and then get pushed back in. This is religion. This is what religion does to us, right? And anyway, those, before you say, those people who burned those other people were not true Christians, because true Christians won't hurt anybody, or true whatever, because they're all the same, okay? And your words of denial will hardly stop anyone, except you, maybe, from connecting the dots, right? It won't stop people from connecting the dots. When someone is killed in the name of Jesus, that's Christianity. I'm sorry to say, whether you agree or disagree with the people doing the killing did. Okay, today, thank God, we have science, right, guys?
Well,
at least science.
I think a lot of blame is laid down on Christianity or religion, when in fact, most people of faith are honest, true, and sincere. And but I think a lot of people here in this forum would agree that religion has been used as a tool throughout history. And it's a terrible thing, the things that are so called in the name of God that are done. So as far as faith and science, I think they're one and the same, and because there's people that are whatever faith that use scientific methods to weigh through things. Faith, as far as that's something that is not seen or but people have inner feelings or their relationship with Jesus or whoever, whatever religion that may be. So as far as like attaching the people of faith to a religion, I don't think that's always fair.
But you forget that when go ahead, Mark.
Just to let you just to let you guys know, on a Blog Talk radio side, we got just about a little under 5 minutes left.
I can make it. I can make
No,
it.
no, we're good. We're good here on UCY for the next hour and 5 minutes.
Right,
and
right, but I want
Blog Talk for the next 5 minutes.
I want Mark to get the gist of it. I don't want him to get just half the story, because Vincent, you interrupted me just as I was about to punchline. Okay, and you forget that when I say any one religion, I mean them all. I know you're probably Christian, and you might take offense at the fact that I'm using Christian as an example, but I mean them all. And what I last said was, thank God we have science, right, guys? At least science has done away with witch hunts, genocide. Science has done away with all that killing for the sake of religion. Yeah, well, they replaced it with nuclear holocaust. Does it count as a holocaust if it was only the Nipponese, you may call them Japanese, that were killed? You know, witch hunts were replaced with nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. NBC, which, by the way, I was an NBC NCO when I was in the Army, and I was disgusted by the kind of things that I was taught how to do with household items, right? Okay. If you're a Holocaust believer, right, the Jewish Holocaust, which is a topic for another show altogether, but if you are a believer of the Holocaust, then you must credit science with the ability to kill millions of Jews before and during World War II, right? Because it was science. They couldn't have done it just naturally. They couldn't have choked or speared, all these Jews. They had to kill them, with chemicals and scientific knowledge. Okay. I was listening to a science versus faith debate a couple of days ago, and one of the scientists stood her ground and argued how ridiculous it is for people to question fluoride in drinking water when she says all the science shows that fluoride has done so many improvements in dental areas, for people around the world. And I'm like, really? I've read the science. The science actually contradicts what she says. But where are you on that topic? Do you believe the science about fluoride? Okay. If you do, then what is the difference between this and faith?
I'm sorry, let me interrupt. Somebody has a player going in the background. Does somebody have the radio playing in the back? Our caller, maybe?
I'm here.
Hey, who was that? Okay, caller. Okay, if today where was I? Okay, today, just like the church, if like the church of 1,000, 100 years ago, or 10 years ago, 10 minutes ago, those in power are using science to exercise their power over you. They're not doing it for free. They're trying to sell you something, or they're trying to get a donation from you. If you can only stop giving them the power over you. Okay. The one question that one question that when somebody brags about knowing something that you are ignorant about, the question you should ask them is, so what? Yeah, I know this seems really lame, but what does it matter? What does it matter? If someone tells you that a black hole is only 2 million miles wide, that's 3 million kilometers for you Canadian types, right? And you say, wow, that's not even wide at all. But instead of saying that, you say, what does it matter today if in this world, how big a black hole is, okay? How will that information get me to the point where I want to be, to where I want to stay at home and be with the kids all day long, right? Who cares how big a black hole is? That person is just trying to exercise power over you or gain power over you. Do you believe that astronauts from the United States of America landed on the moon? Right? It's a big argument. But really, what does it matter? Of course, at one point, it was important for those in power over us that the USSR believed that Americans had landed on the moon, right? Because that way it could intimidate them. But was it important to you or to me? Some may argue that it's more important. Some may argue that it was more important for us only in that how would it benefit us the power, it only benefited the people who had power over us. Do you suppose today there would be more or less so-called Americans in prison if the Russians had taken over this land, right? And we know that the United States right now has the highest incarceration rate in the world, higher than what the next two or three nations that have the highest rates of prisoners. You know, so what is it so important if we did land on the moon? I mean, it's not making my job any easier that we landed on the moon, believing it or not believing in it. Okay, today, as always, we relinquish power to those that succeed in convincing us that they are smarter or have more information than we do. How does accepting that the earth is round help you pay your bills? How does accepting that the earth rotates around the sun help you in any way whatsoever? A man went to prison for life because he thought that way, and the church controlled him. But what did it matter? What did it matter really? Right? If you believe in a scientific discovery without you having discovered it, or you haven't seen it for yourself, or done it by yourself, how is that any different from the Catholic Church telling you that you will burn in hell unless you show your faith by contributing money?
There's a lot of religions that are using, like I said, as a tool, but faith is personal for some people, and it's not like a lot of people are anti-Christian because and there is the problem with wanting to regulate and legislate morality, and you can't do that. I think the bottom line is we are independent agents in life, and we have our right to life, liberty, and our pursuit of happiness to maintain what we work for. And so to tell a person that they're immoral, that's not for one person to tell another. It's up to that person to decide for themselves if they're going to have a relationship with the Creator as they choose, or to maintain that there's nothing more than life and then death. There's science that speaks to both as far as origins go. So,
can I add something on that?
Sure, come on.
People in general, because I'm hearing points on both sides that I agree with. But people in general have used both religion and science for corrupt purposes. I mean, via the witch trials to all the horrible experiments that have been done throughout history, not just through the Holocaust, in order to expand on our scientific knowledge. And it continues to go on with the tortures of animals today, repeating experiments that they already have the answers to, but they just keep repeating. Or even ones that we don't. It's still, both religion and science has been used for horrible, horrible things. But at the same time, there's wonderful things that have come out of both. I mean, we have gained a lot of knowledge through science, through real science, of being able to observe and predict things that can be seen. I mean, even right down to some aspects of evolution, like microevolution. I mean, that can be seen every day in all the species of dogs that we have and the different types of birds and fish and so on and so forth. And, same with religion. People have also used religion to go and to feed homeless and to put clothes on people that don't have them, or to help people, to make better changes. And both have been used both ways. And so to categorize either one in a bad light or a good light is taking out the human aspect of it, because it's people and what they do with the knowledge that they have.
I think you're right. Would anybody else like to weigh in?
But I would.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry we're blowing some there.
This is Kevin. We're both in the same house. And to further that, can you hear me okay? Because this mic is really garbage. We're in the process of getting another one. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
It sounds like you're too close to the mic, and we're getting a lot of the breath on the microphone. So
Yeah, I'm telling you, cheap mic. I'm going to the store as soon as I can get a vehicle. But to get back to the point of where I was at as far as law of attractions, because, if you're projecting the positive, that's where I think she was trying to take it a little bit. That's where I always take it. I always project the positive, swallow the negative, regurgitate it, spit it out, and get rid of it, and keep moving on with positive. And there's a lot of negative out in this world, especially on this topic, and I'm glad you guys allowed us to weigh in a little bit. I don't want to take your entire show, so we're going to bow out. But I'm thoroughly disgusted with the way humanity has gone, and it continues to go. I mean, you touched on fluoride, you can touch on GMOs, you can go all the way down the scientific line as far as negatives on that side. We can all go on the positive side of it, but when it gets down to the brass tacks of the whole deal, it's the human touch, the human speaking to human, and that's where we've gotten completely diluted and lost, in my view. You guys have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Colin. Appreciate you. And Dan, thank you so much for hosting that call over to Blog Talk. Yeah, I really bungled it. Anyways, if anybody else would like to weigh in and interrupt Jose as I do, please do.
Well, I just in order for them to interrupt me, I have to say something, right? So here I go. Okay, I think she missed my point, although she's got it, head on as far as the what I was trying to say, but I'm not trashing religion, and I'm not trashing science. I'm trashing people for allowing themselves to be so easily manipulated by those that will exercise power over us. And so much so that, the other day I was on a Facebook stream and somebody said something about bacteria that was in the stratosphere, surrounding the planet Earth. And I said, wow, I wonder what that stuff is doing to us every time, NASA sends up a craft and it comes down. And somebody says, oh, that bacteria can't hurt us because it's used to a different environment, and it can't survive in the environment that we live in. And I said, well, history is replete with situations in which a foreign organism was introduced into a new environment and completely devastated that environment. I didn't get into the details, but I mean rabbits in Australia, which is probably an old story by now, right? But it actually happened. They introduced rabbits in Australia. They had no natural enemies, so the rabbits took over the whole Australia countryside and was eating crops hand over fist. The rabbits have fists, but the examples are there. The examples are there where people say with a very official tone, oh, that can't happen because blah, blah, blah. We're scientists. You can believe us. It's even a line from Ghostbusters, right? Where I think it was Dan Aykroyd that says, back off, Buster. We're scientists. Because scientists are the new religion. You're supposed to give us room because we are scientists and you are not. You are a peasant. And if you want to get to heaven, you have to give me room. That's basically the same thing that's happening today. And it's the same thing that got us in trouble to begin with. We need more. I forget. Oh, shucks. With so many name droppings that was going on. There was one philosopher that was out there in the ancient Greek or wherever, and I take offense because Mexica philosophers were just destroyed, put out of business before we got to hear what they had to say. When the Mexica philosophers are the ones that and scientists were the ones that had already mapped out the stars and so on and so forth. And we already knew who where the center of the universe was and stuff. But anyway, some philosopher, some Greek philosopher or somewhere else said, question everything. That is the basis of science. Question everything. If somebody tells you the world is round instead of saying, wow, the world is round and all this time we thought it was flat, instead of saying that, say, can you prove that the world is round? But more importantly, what does it matter that the world is round? And by the way, that whole the world is round business, where we tend to compare people, to insult people by saying, those people were so stupid they still thought that the world was round. The fact is that back then, probably more so than now, people didn't care. You told them, hey, the world is flat. And they're like, well, okay, excuse me, I got to go milk this cow or we're not going to have any milk today, right? And hey, but some people think the world is round and they're like, well, okay, fine. Some people think the world is round. How is that going to help me milk this cow? I got to go milk this cow, mister. Are you finished talking to me? I got to go milk this cow, right? And so power, we tend to say that and say, oh, these people are so ignorant, they didn't even care. Well, the thing is, it didn't matter. And it doesn't matter today whether the world is round. They tell us the world is round, and you take it on faith. Who today would argue that the world is not round? If you argue that the world is not round, you're going to be seen as an idiot. But the fact of the matter is, unless you got on a space shuttle and drove it yourself and went up into outer space where you can look back down at the Earth and say, oh, look, the Earth is round. You don't really know. You're just taking it on faith. And I'm repeating myself, I know. If you're taking it on blind faith, what's the difference between that and what we did with the Catholic Church? It's all the same thing. And it's not, you can't blame the evildoers. You can't blame the evildoers. Have you heard that little cliche? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You cannot blame the evildoers because that's their mission, to do evil. And if you allow them to do evil, it's your fault. So we can't blame the few Christians or the few people that did crimes against humanity for the sake of Christ. We can't blame those individuals because somebody taught them Christianity, and we can get down to, hey, well, they're just doing their job. That's the problem we have today. That is the problem we have today. And
hey, I think you're going to agree with that. We have a caller. Also, Suzanne Posel from Occupy Corporatism is online with us right now, and she hosted the call over to Blog Talk. We did a double broadcast anyways. Welcome, Suzanne. Stand by, caller. Jose, please stand by too.
Hello, thank you. I was listening to the conversations, and this sort of thing intrigues me very much because I'm really trying to understand how they do it. And they do it with religion, and they do it with other control mechanisms. And Jose, what I hear you saying is absolutely fascinating.
Oh, shucks.
Well, then I'm going to lead in with a compliment before I slap you around a bit. We are under a spell. We are under a complete spell. And when you are not aware of something, you can't make an alteration to it or draw any attention to it because you can't see it. And unfortunately, we've all been taught throughout the centuries in this social conditioning that's been going on since civilization began that certain things are important to us. Like that whether the world is round or not is inconsequential because I've got to milk the cow. The only reason why we think that we have to keep milking the cow is because we have a slave mentality that has been passed down through generation and generation ad infinitum. So being aware of our surroundings and the actual nature of our environment and our existence is extremely important. It happens to be a subject that the elites have been studying and the people in heads of state and heads of religion have been studying for eons themselves. So if this information is important, obviously, to the people who run things, then it must be information that is important. And what's important for us to know is how to milk that cow, because we're the cogs in the wheel, we're the grease, we're making the machine go. So without us, they don't have a machine. So if we branch out our horizons and move past the idea of, okay, I believe this, then we could open up our minds to knowing whether or not the world is round, and that having a direct causational effect to our existence.
No, I can understand where Suzanne is coming from.
Would you like to add in, Mark?
No, I mean, well, said that, Susanna, I agree with everything that you're saying, and you're right on point with that.
Awesome. Stand by, you guys. Caller, how are you? Welcome
Yeah.
to the call.
Hello?
Hello.
This?
Yes.
How are y'all? Hi, Jose.
How you doing? Is this Becky?
Yeah, this is Becky.
Hey, Becky. I recognize your voice.
I think maybe I'm catching what you're saying, Jose. Because, like, you know, I want to be fully aware of what's going on, but for me, I want to be in today's moment and relaxed and able to hear the ones that are around me in my world. And what I'm seeing, you know, just from watching social networks, you know, I was down for a long time in my health, and I woke up, you know, thank goodness, to natural meds and getting away from what the doctors had did to me. And everybody seems to be fighting something nowadays, or trying to really, really dig so deep into something that what I'm seeing is that we have lost a lot of personal care and how we can really have right here at our, just, you know, I understand the black hole, you know, what does that matter when, if you can't be still and enjoy life today?
No, I think
that make any sense?
Some of the ramifications of you know, accepting a faith or you know, having your faith in science is there's two big differences, I guess, is when this life ends, then you're cease to exist, or in for most religions there's an afterlife, and in most spirituality a continuation of you know, into another life. So I don't know. I think probably it has some to do with your worldview. I don't know if it's all good and all bad. I think probably a little bit of both at times.
Well, the worldview, you know, it's part of the whole problem, because Becky's world right now consists of what she can see, feel, touch, taste, and what affects her. And although I agree, yes, from a social standpoint, yes, we do need to know that the world is round, so that we won't be just another cog in the, what is it she said? Another cog in the wheel or something like this. But that circumvents my point. My point is, when these people are telling you their opinion and it affects you only because you care about their opinion, then how is that helping you milk that cow? Not because you're milking a cow for, you know, big industrial complex, but because you're milking that cow so you can have food today. But somebody comes and tells you, hey, you know, the world is no longer flat, so now you got to give me, you know, 25% of your milk on a daily basis, or you're going to burn in hell or something. I'm stretching it here, okay, just for effect. But the point is, if we could inform ourselves of the fact, which is great, right? And we could use these facts to affect our well-being, like Becky says. You know, how is this? You know, are we forgetting that we want to reach peace? Are we forgetting that we are you know, sentient animals, and we have to, you know, help others around us, and so on and so forth? If we are educating ourselves to know these things, that's great. hey Vincent, how come you can milk 5 cows in 1 hour and I can only milk 3 cows? You say, well, I use this technique, and then you demonstrate it to me, and then I learn. That's science. Right? And they say, hey, Vincent, I got a faster way to milk cows. Look, this is how I do it, right? And at one point, you're going to say, I doubt that you can milk cows any faster than I can. That is science. But when you tell me, Jose, if you whip your cow 3 times the night before you're going to milk them, they'll produce more milk. And
true science is something that you can demonstrate and repeat through experimentation. And so there's nobody that was there observing creation or the beginning of the universe. So, it will continue to be a hot debate, I would suspect, because neither is provable. But there is evidence that can be considered and weighed. So take that information, if you will.
And of course, remember what I said before, nothing is provable. It's only demonstrable. You can demonstrate it, because tomorrow we might get more information that demonstrates what you just finished demonstrating is false. And that is science. And I think E.M. said, was it E.M. that said, the scientists get to say this is the way it is, unless we change our mind. Remember, you're old enough, Vincent, we were told in elementary school that the smallest element known to man was the atom. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and there's a lot more past that. Works and all kinds of little things. Yeah.
Well, I still remember the day that I was told, because it was a traumatic experience for me. Where the teacher, or the so-called teacher, she's actually an instructor, drew a little circle and wrote a little N on the inside, and then drew some kind of like light circles around with 2 dots in the back, and one was a proton and one was a neutron, right? And she said, this is a picture of the atom. This is what the atom looks like. This is the smallest element known to man. And I raised my hand and I said, ma'am, Mrs. blah, blah, blah. And she said, yes, Jose, do you have a question? I said, yes. If the atom is the smallest thing known to man, then what about the neutron and the proton? Right? And she, a teacher who's at that time was the scientist in my life, said, shut up and sit down. Stop making trouble. I thought I had a legitimate question.
I think you're a troublemaker. But you know what? That's a good thing. I think we all need to make trouble. Stand up and voice your opinion. Have discussions. And, there's a lot of stuff that we really need to talk about. I think this is one of them. Among many things that's going on in this world. And to look at origins, I think is very important. It's for consideration.
Well, anyway, so but to get back to Becky, she's saying, hey, what about love? What about peace? Why are we arguing all these things? And that's what I'm saying too. What does it matter? What does it matter if the world is round? Why is somebody who tells you they don't care if the world is round, why is that person seen as a Neanderthal or something lesser? And I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names, guys, and so I forgot the name of the lady who was nice to me and then shoved a hot poker in my throat.
Hi, Suzanne.
I apologize. It's Suzanne. I do apologize.
Okay, Suzanne. No, that's okay. I tend to dramatize things for the sake of the comedic effect, and some people got to laugh at it, right? Especially some ex-wives out there who like the idea of me getting jabbed with a hot poker in the throat. But anyway, yes, I agree with you. It's important that we seek knowledge. It's important that we seek knowledge, and the knowledge that we seek should be for our purpose. My complaint is we're too eager to accept blindly information from anybody who represents themselves as knowing more than we do. And you know what? I get that all the time. People think that I'm this special guy because I have a lot of experience with relationships and I've counseled people, so I have, stories to tell. And they're like, oh, Jose, Vincent tries to call me the love doctor. I refuse and I reject that title because I'm just giving my opinions based on my observations, right? Based on my experience. And you can agree or disagree. That's okay. Suzanne, you have good points, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying, yes, it's important. We should educate ourselves. We should strive forward as individuals. Becky, I agree with you. Becky and Vincent kind of make the same point at different times. Our faith is a personal thing. Suzanne, you've got a beautiful mind, and if you believe in God, that's up to you. How you use that belief for you to reach inner peace and for you to reject anyone else trying to control you is your business. And I hope you're as good at it as you were eloquent in stabbing me in the throat with that red hot poker. It was already.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, what shocks me, and I'm a journalist, and I've hosted my own radio show before, and what shocks me is hey, I don't need to click on the source links in your article. I trust you. No, don't trust me. Click on the source links. It's not arbitrary. It's there for a reason. Once we get a belief, we try to validate that belief, and we look for information that will validate that belief, and we reject information that does not validate that belief, and that is a problem. It's a problem of psychology. That's what the problem with religion and science is. It's a problem of psychology. When it benefits who we are and validates who we are, then we accept that and say that that is truth. And when it invalidates who we are, and therefore we then reject the information and say that that is untruth. And it is our own mental idiosyncrasies that prevent us from being able to look at a situation objectively and be able to, discern how it would affect our life or how it impacts who we are, because we have been trained out of that ability. And it's unfortunate because we are having this debate between science and religion, and they are one and the same. You have to have faith to believe both. You have to accept certain things as true. The facts change all the time. They find the Dead Sea Scrolls, and, they discover smaller particles than the atom. So facts change all the time. I know that because I'm a journalist, and the facts change all the time. Depends on which official story, like the gentleman before was talking about the title of his book. It protects the officials, absolutely. So we're kind of at an impasse here. What is good information, in your opinion, Jose, that we even could start to conceive the idea of what does impact us and what does help us milk that cow better?
Well, it's the information that you have discovered on your own, and that pertains to you. Okay, especially I picked the topic of milking cows. I just pulled that out of the air, but of course, Vincent's technique for milking cows faster may be inefficient for me because my cows are too short or too tall or whatever the case might be. So does that apply to me? Obviously, there are other factors to consider. And, if someone were to come to me and say, what are you doing? And I say, well, I'm milking cows this way because Vincent says that it's faster. That person might say, oh, you're just being superstitious. And in fact, he would be right, because I'm just doing it based on what Vincent told me, because it hasn't worked for me, but yet I'm still doing it. My biggest qualm is, remember, I'm fussing at the believers, not because I know the world is not round, right? But because I know that science is flawed. And that other wonderfully articulate lady that came on with her boyfriend or husband, that said, we believe all these things about carbon dating, and I happen to know carbon dating is a very sensitive topic with me. I did a lot of research. I got into so much trouble questioning carbon dating because I see the flaws behind carbon dating. But we tend to accept carbon dating as well. That's the way it works, you know. And the fact is, no one has ever said, well, you know, the carbon dating is questionable, and the thing is, we can only carbon date for sure back as far as we know how old something is, for sure, and then we can the rest is just guesswork. But we don't know whether the carbon 12 molecule, how it reacts after 1,000 years. We don't know. You know, it might double in its effect, and therefore the stuff that we're carbon dating over 1,000 years is half as old as we're saying it is. And my computer's doing a lot of popping and stuff. You may lose me here. But good, because I've already spoken a lot, right? But the point is, what is the point of somebody telling us that this mastodon is, or I should say, half of this mastodon is 4,000 years old, and the other half is 2,000 years old? What's the point? How does that matter to me? Right? How does that matter to me? Why are we giving these people power over us by saying, wow, you found that and it only cost you $4.3 billion of my tax dollars? You know, why do we give them that power? We should be insisting that they do research on something that does matter. Like what? I don't know. What matters to you, Susan? Did we lose Susan? I heard
no, I'm here.
Oh,
we also we have a caller, Aaron, and he's an activist too, and has done radio, and he's on with us now. And I think he wants to touch on materialism and realism, and I'd be interested in hearing that.
Can you guys hear me?
Sure can. Yeah.
Hey,
with us, Aaron.
Materialism, realism. Now, scientists recently discovered. Well, not recently discovered, like this before my time, what's inside atoms, right? Like, what's inside of an atom? Like, we think it's empty space or something that we can't observe, right? So, like, if everything's made up of empty space or something that we can't observe, like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but, yeah, materialism and people power. I like how you guys were talking about religion and science and the people behind them using them against us and giving us a bit of information and stuff. It makes us biased and whatnot. But it's all materialism and realism. It's what it comes down to, and control and power. We all want control and power, but control is an illusion, if I'm correct. But science and faith and our opinions all change with new information. Am I right?
No.
Absolutely, I think.
And can I chime in?
Come on. Yeah, come on, Becky.
All right. I call my style of living, well, is a cafeteria style. I dissect things. I always have. My brain just rolls at 100 miles an hour. And what makes sense to me, and what I can prove for me, I call it cafeteria style, and it's the only way I know how to live. I have studied all world religions. Chemo messed my brain up a lot. I'm still trying to get some of that back, but the basic to my living has always been, I eat what I need, whether it be education, food, or whatever it is, social, and what I can't make sense of, I throw the mess in the trash out the door, and I go on. And, because I have so many people, and I get reached by, I can't tell you how many people a day. You know, how can you just pick up and do what you're doing, Becky? And worrying about me, and I know no other way to live. When it's time to go, it's time to go. If I don't understand that reality, I feel I'm cheating myself to live in that reality. And I mean, like, I can't. I gotta sleep with myself at night.
Well, I think that's the bottom line, and you don't have to be have a faith to live life right and to not do harm to others. I guess there's some more explanations besides the Big Bang or creation as far as origins and materialism. Aaron, I really don't know too much about what the subject is, so I'd be interested in hearing more.
Materialism is the ideology that only matter exists, that everything is based upon matter. Greed, we need to consume, we need things, right? We all need things to survive in life, right? Now, that ideology of materialism brings forth a fear-greed dichotomy, and that's basically what we're living in right now, is a fear-greed dichotomy that's somehow merged with an economic slavery. We're all slaving for the dollar, right? What I want to ask you is, do you think matter comes from consciousness, or does consciousness come from matter? Because that's the bottom line for it.
To me, it appears that matter is created from vibrations. And that would go with the Bible saying that God spoke into existence.
Yeah, in the beginning there was a sound, right? And the sound was God. And then we got to put that into the modern idiom of going to space and all that stuff. It's crazy. But, yeah.
I mean, you got to go back, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And to say what existed before this primordial dot, that was the Big Bang, or, where did God come from? I mean, you get to the same point where you can't break it down any further. So there's only an examination of evidence, and too many times evidence is presented as facts.
Mm-hmm. But it's not like we can just go hop in my time machine and go and observe this way back when. It's just not possible. We can only observe the present, and that makes the future.
Right. Suzanne, I think you wanted to weigh in?
So.
Oh, no, I'm listening. This is really good. I'm just listening.
Okay.
One of those unanswerable questions, like philosophy can lead a man to question the questions that he may never have answers to, and religion will only lead a man to trying to remember what I heard. Religion will only lead a man to repress his thoughts of thinking. Religion will stop you from questioning those things that man was made to question. We're observers on this planet. We're not passive observers neither.
Well, at least Western religion is definitely what stops a person from questioning, because that's the way we were programmed by Western religion. And there are various religions throughout the world, unfortunately most of which were devastated by the Western religions, which invite questioning. They seem to have fallen by the wayside because of this great propaganda machine that was the Catholic Church, and even the Catholic Church would have failed were it without a very willing populace. I mean, can you imagine one of the first people, a woman in 1398, walking out to to wash clothes, beating it on a rock, and a monk comes up to her and says, woman, you're evil. All teachings of Scripture say that women are evil, and you must pay the church money or you will burn in hell. And she's like, hell? What's hell? And he says, well, it's eternal damnation where your fire will burn your soul for an eternity, and you will never have relief. And she's like, well, I don't want to go through that. What do I do to avoid it? And the monk says, well, you have to give me, 6 eggs a week from your chickens. And can you imagine if this woman had said, screw that, get your own chickens, right? Instead of believing, the world today would be a much different place. But instead, that woman said, whoa, I don't want to burn in hell. You're right. Here, take 6 eggs. Here, let me give you 6 more eggs for next week, because I don't want to go to hell next week either. And basically the populace was enthusiastic because their own personal salvation, their own personal space was threatened by this old routine of create a threat, offer a solution to the threat, and then take advantage of it. And basically that's what we've fallen into. Whether you want to argue, Big Bang Theory or whatever, all it is an argument for power. I don't want any power.
Well, I just want to interject here for a moment, Jose. And let me just ask you this question. Isn't that like, in other words, like, be careful for what you wish for because it may happen?
Did you get that, Jose? That question was for Jose?
Yes.
What did he ask for?
Jose?
Hold on, let me get on the phone. I was saying, isn't that like when you're talking about burning in hell? I mean, what I was asking is, the thing is, like, be careful for what you wish for because it may happen,
Jose has fallen off. Basically what you're saying, I think, is then that your thoughts have an effect on bringing about a reality?
Yes.
I got a quote on hell. I like what I said real fast. Expecting heaven is what hell is all about.
I think the idea of an eternal damnation, burning in hell forever by a loving Creator God, I think that's not correct in what the Bible says, and there's many Bible scholars that would agree with that. So that idea of being tortured for hell because you don't accept a certain belief, I don't buy that. I think. And I beg the question, they're either a eternal loving God, then
no devil is after me.
Will measure each individual by their heart.
Hey, can I say something?
Yes.
Where does it specifically say in the Bible or in any old scrolls that there is an actual internal damnation or hell? I know it says something about us suffering for our sins or being judged and that sort of thing, but...
Well, I don't believe the Bible does say that a person burns in hell forever. There's references of the worm never dies and so forth, but I'm not prepared to...
There is no real clear description of it.
I agree with that statement.
You guys ever read Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy?
Say that again?
It's the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri or whatever his last name is. The book's literally called Dante's Inferno.
Yes, I've seen clips from it.
It's a cool book, but it's fiction.
A lot of, I guess, ideologies come from, Greek mythology, all the way back into ancient history, Babylon and so forth. So I think there's, conglomeration of ideas that have become, dogma for many. You agree?
Well, I think the problem that we have here is that we're conditioned to have belief systems. And once you have that belief system, then you're looking for validation of that because you are personally involved in it. We also have another phenomenon that they use against us, which is our need to survive. Now, one of the ways in which we look to survive is to look at the people who are the most successful in our group. And so we look up to celebrities or people who have wealth, and we say we want that. We want to wear that suit. We want to drive that car. We want to live in that house. We want to be able to do those things that they do on vacation. It takes money. Okay, well, we want to be like that. They take that innate need in all of us and twist it against us to fight amongst ourselves about what is true and what is not, and how to live your life and how not to live your life. And when we look at religion and science...
have that need.
They all use it against us. It's all psychological manipulation.
Absolutely. The driving force behind the scientific theory, and it is a theory, it might be a probable or a plausible theory, but it's still a theory. And the stories in the Bible, they're... in order to get people to comply with the system that is put in place, you have to have two factors. You have to have them grounded in what's going on right now so that they're concerned about 9 to 5, and they'll let tomorrow be tomorrow as soon as their alarm goes off. And you also have to quell them in the ideas of what's going to happen afterward, because we're all taught with Pavlovian thought that we have to have a rewards-based system. So if I'm doing things good here, I'll get rewarded eventually. If it's not here, it's in the afterlife. The unknowns, once those unknowns are then quelled, it doesn't matter whether or not the information is correct. It's emotionally touched us, emotionally satisfied us, and therefore we move on and do everything in our lives based on those beliefs. And I see that as the absolute crux of the major problem here.
Yeah, because I don't live that way. And that's what kind of messes me up. I have to kind of stay to myself because I do not believe in that belief system. I was not raised that way.
Well, let me ask you a question. How often do you purchase clothes? How often do you purchase clothing?
I do not walk into any store and purchase any clothes. If I got something on me, it has been recycled.
Okay.
Yeah.
But make your point.
I do not care. There's nothing I'm trying to follow.
You're an unusual subject. I'm at a loss. Most people purchase things not because they need them, but because they saw them and they wanted them. And so the caller is an extremely rare case. She should be studied.
I should have warned you about her.
It's amazing.
I do feel really alone. I will tell you that. Okay? Most times I do.
You're going to find that about a lot of Vincent's friends, because I'm the same way. Hey,
I've lost everybody in my Facebook world. I've gotten so many messages today. They said I have lost my mind, and I say no. I think y'all have lost your minds, and well, I don't mean to say it that way.
Telling you that you lost your mind is suggesting that you ever had your mind to begin with, right?
That's right. I told them. I said I'm crazy, and I love it. I love my world. I am so happy. Y'all don't have a clue how happy I am. Why are y'all worried about me?
Anyway,
could you bottle that? Sell it to us?
Somebody was addressing a question to me, and I went to mute the microphone, and as I did so, my computer prompted me to answer whether I wanted to restart now or later, and it defaulted to restart now. When I clicked the microphone, or what I thought the microphone, I clicked to restart my computer. So I apologize. I know somebody was addressing a question to me. Did I miss out on answering it, or what happened there?
That was from Aaron. You want to?
Oh yeah. I think it was. Do you think matter comes from consciousness, or does consciousness come from matter? And then somebody went to go on say it's like the chicken. What came first, chicken or the egg thing? And then I went to go on and say, well, that's in the past. We can't observe the past. We can only observe the present, the here and now, and that creates the future. So that's one of those never unknowable things. You know what I mean? We'll never have the question to it.
Well, good thing I didn't get to answer that then, huh? Well, I don't know if you've listened to the rest of or the previous show. I would answer that with, does it matter? You know, what does it matter? And not to, you know, run a pun on matter. The question, you know, my question to that, my answer to that would be, you know, what does it matter where it comes from? It is, and that should be enough. Boy, I got quiet. Did I get quiet? Am I still here?
Yep, you're here. I think that was Aaron muting his phone. And,
okay.
I'm over collecting Suzanne's information and dropping in chat from Occupy Corporatism and also the Region 10 report, which broadcast here on UCY.tv. Accomplished activist and writer. I follow everything on Facebook from her over to her postings and back to Occupy Corporatism. I'd invite you to check that out. And I'm grabbing the link now.
Will you put it in the events page, Vince, so I can get it? Because I can't get each chat.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, man.
Uh-huh. Continue, somebody, while I get this up here.
Yeah, me too, because I seldom run into... Well, I run into a lot of people who want to poke me with a red hot poker, but I seldom run into people that I respect. Doggone it. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting phone calls. Anyway, so I would like to you know, follow up on Suzanne and give her more opportunities to stick it to me, like she said. I think that those were her words. But I know that we will do it on an intellectual basis, not on an attack basis. And of course, the whole idea again is to gain knowledge, right? That's why I go on to these radio shows with Vincent, because I believe I have knowledge that people can use to reach an inner peace, which is ultimately what we should all be striving for. The inner peace, as opposed to you know, getting rich or things like this. And again, where I scold people is because we believe so much. I'll include myself because I was there too. You know, I used to watch the Super Bowl religiously, pardon the expression, you know, and until I realized that I wasn't gaining anything. As a matter of fact, I was usually worse at peace after a Super Bowl game than I was before. So why was I even bothering watching it? And I'm just using the Super Bowl as an example. I don't want, you know, people to start, you know, jumping all on me because of the Super Bowl, you know, as far as, you know, who won or who played or whatever the case might be, right? But I would like to surround myself with people who are deep thinkers and people who can articulate, people who can, who have the ability to disagree without insulting. Boy, that's a tough one, right? Right? Because how many times did she apologize? You know, because I joked about it, but I was hardly insulted, but she was so ready to apologize. And I appreciate that respect from one human being to another, because we have so little of it. Either you see it my way or you're wrong.
I would like to surround myself with people who are deep thinkers, with people
that
who
is a major problem, because we think that because we hear somebody's opinion that we have to gravitate onto it and grasp it and bring it into ourselves. And I appreciate what you said here tonight, because it opens people's eyes to the idea that you don't have to listen to a fact or an opinion masqueraded as a fact, or vice versa. You can listen to the information and not be emotionally swayed by it, and then, you know, go out with your pitchfork and fight for it. You can remain an individual amidst all of this information that's going on around you. I appreciate that about you.
Right. Well, thanks. And by the way, I had we've all had our darker days, right? Now, of course, we're all a product of, and we can escape our past, and this is important for everybody. The big thing is when someone is not at peace, you can tell by the language they use, by the expressions they have, by what they believe. And I hate to say that, but it's kind of a stereotype. But you can tell, and this is the infuriating part of dealing with Christians. Oh, right? Because when you're dealing with the correct Christians, they will not argue with you. They will say, I will pray for you, right? And that's infuriating. I'm sorry, I have trouble with that word because I'm Mexicano and have an accent, right? But it's infuriating because you want an argument, and these people are saying, look, I'm at peace. I'm okay with what I believe. Obviously, you need some help, and I'm going to pray for you. And you have to love that in someone who has reached that level of peace. People talk to me and they're like, wow, you're intense. I'm like, yeah, I'm intense because obviously I need more lessons on how to be at peace because, I see a problem and I want to change it. Not only do I want to change it, but I want to change the world. But the fact is, the only way that I can convince people to make changes is to use the same techniques that I am preaching against, right? Because they just won't listen unless you're selling them a product, or unless you've got something, you're promising something that's going to help them milk faster, or whatever the case might be, right? And of course I'm speaking generally because tonight we've had a whole bunch of people who have demonstrated that there's people out there that can think for themselves. Right, and Suzanne, you hit the nail right on the head when you say, when you're talking with somebody, it's sort of out of a respect that you want to incorporate what they're saying, because you don't want to tell them, wait a minute, that might work for you, but it's all wrong for me, and you might actually, if we were to say that to somebody, we might actually get a response like, what do you mean, wrong for me? You mean there's another way? There's a better way? Tell me about it. And if they're willing to listen, maybe we can get people on the same bandwagon. But chances are, like I said, it's all going to be a matter of people listening only for the sake of responding or rebutting, as opposed to listening so that they can learn. Because usually the evidence or history has shown that people will believe the first thing they hear, even if the second thing they hear makes more sense. And I'm embarrassed to be
we're coming up to
admit that I'm a part of that.
Hey, I appreciate what you do, Jose. And hey, everybody, Aaron, if you've got any contact information, put it out there. I've dropped Suzanne's information into the page on Facebook and here in chat. Really appreciate you guys coming on. I really came in fumbling, so I guess some people weren't happy, but I guess I'm not talking to them that aren't listening. But thank y'all for staying tuned in and listening. And Double Crossed is coming up, Double Cross Radio from the state of Jefferson. Everybody stay tuned, and always a great show. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Phyllis Sinclair. Go check out her website. It's awesome, phyllissinclair.com. Jaja's rocking us out with the Radioactive. You can find her at, she's everywhere, Jaja. Just do her people on her, too. On Reverb Nation, the real Jaja official page. So, any last words? Thank you, Mark. Also, everybody thank you that participated in, somebody take us out. We got a minute or so.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent, for allowing me on your radio show, even though I only had a few brief moments. I hope I got great music.
Love and peace, y'all.
Bump up the volume.
Democrats, Republicans, your information's jumbling. The USA is crumbling. Y'all sit back, dumb as shit. The mass inflation, the home invasions, the CPS is coming to snatch your babies. These confiscations, the conversations, they're operating within the zones we're trading. We're in the matrix, now we're totally raided. They infiltrated, finally the devil gave in. If you can't hear me, then pump up the volume. McDonald's, Bin Laden, Osama, Obama, bring up something real, legalize marijuana. Everything on a bong hit is as blonde as Madonna. Radioactive, intergalactic, counterattacking, the main attraction. Make it happen.